Furious world leaders are publicly rejecting Donald Trump's attempt to make them join yet another coalition to open up the Strait of Hormuz. If this sounds like deja vu, well, this is actually a new pitch that Donald Trump is making. He said that he's creating a new group that is being called the Maritime Freedom Construct. And he is begging American allies, or I should say former American allies, can you please join the Maritime Freedom Construct to help us open up the Strait of Hormuz? And all these other countries are saying, did you just rename the thing that we already told you that we are not joining? Because this is not Europe's war. This is not Asia's war. This is your disastrous, catastrophic war, Donald, with Netanyahu. And no, we're not joining this. And in fact, furious world leaders are now turning to Canada and saying, we're going to make Canada officially the leader of the free world and make you the center of a new defense lending organization. So while Donald Trump is saying, can you all join the Maritime Freedom Construct? Furious world leaders that are associated with NATO are saying, no, but we're going to make Canada the head of a new entity that's going to reliably lend money because, Donald, we don't trust you, but we trust Prime Minister Carney, the heroic former central banker who's now leading the free world. So get a load of this headline. U.S. seeks new coalition to get ships moving again in Hormuz, the Wall Street Journal reports. And so now the United States is asking other countries to join a new international coalition that would enable ships to navigate the Strait of Hormuz after traffic through the waterway stalled. Stalled would be an understatement. Okay, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Donald Trump is pitching the Maritime Freedom Construct to share information, coordinate diplomatically, and help enforce sanctions. Can you help me? Donald Trump is begging, or at least the State Department is, while Donald Trump is at the same time making social media posts like this. The United States is studying and reviewing the possible reduction of troops in Germany, with a determination to be made over the next short period of time. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. So while you're begging countries like Germany and others in the European Union, Japan, and elsewhere to join your new group, Donald, you are saying that you want to screw over the German alliance, which actually helps the United States. So now Donald Trump ordered the Defense Department and State Department that's begging Germany for help to study and review a possible reduction of troops in Germany. That's what Donald Trump is now focused on. And as Congressman from Nebraska, Don Bacon, who was served in the military at a top leadership position, he goes, he's a Republican. He goes, the continued attacks on NATO allies are counterproductive. The comments hurt Americans. I commanded the huge Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. The two big airfields in Germany give us, the United States, great access in 3 continents. We're shooting ourselves in our own foot. But Don, which you should realize, Don Bacon, that is, Donald Trump, he thought it was a brilliant idea in Atlantic City to open up 3 casinos saddled with massive debt right next to each other. And most people in the casino business were saying, but Donald, your 3 casinos are going to cannibalize it. You're going to go bankrupt. And Donald Trump's like, no, it's going to be so much gold, and we're going to get Michael Jackson, and we're going to make it so big. The Taj Mahal, the this, the that. You've never seen anything so big. Bankrupt, bankrupt, bankrupt. And it's exactly what Donald Trump is doing to the United States. And it's exactly what Donald Trump's doing with this naval blockade in the Persian Gulf, because Trump's plan is, how am I going to open up the Strait of Hormuz? Okay, well, it's closed, so I'm going to close it even more with another blockade of an existing blockade. Brilliant decision there, Donald. And so now furious world leaders are saying, Canada, we need your help. So Canada has been selected to host the new multinational defense bank. Sources are saying it's a big announcement, folks, by the way. And here's what we know about it. Canada has been selected as a host nation of this new multinational defense bank. negotiations recently concluded. Once established, the bank could include as many as 40 countries, all NATO members and their allies, and it will provide long-term, low-cost financing for defense projects undertaken by participating countries. You know why they're trusting Canada? Because they don't trust the United States to run this anymore. Clearly, in a pre-Trump world, if this entity were to exist, Donald Trump screwed this all up, but the United States would be taking the lead. But right now, Canada is, and as Premier Doug Ford of Ontario says, the Defense Security and Resilience Bank is an opportunity to put Canada at the center of global finance and manufacturing. As our nation's financial capital, with a skilled workforce and unparalleled global connectivity, there's no better place for the bank to be headquartered than in Toronto. And you know how we've reported how over 60% of Canadians think that it would be a good idea for Canada to join the European Union. Although I've heard people, as you dig into it a little bit more, I'm not sure Canadians know the full integration with the Brussels bureaucracy and what that could potentially entail and look like for other things that Canadians hold dear. But I think that there could be, and I think this is how the European Union sees it, actually a great relationship that's already forming. I mean, there's already a transatlantic partnership that was formed between Canada and the European Union. They have a defense pact, shared economic pacts, trade pacts that have already been developed over the past 14 months or so. But I think there's a way to do it where you don't have to become a formal member of the European Union, but you can basically be like a informal member of the European Union and participate in meetings. And so in a major European Union meeting that's coming up, Canada, it's the first time a non-European Union member has been invited, and Canada will be basically participating in some critical European Union meetings without actually officially joining the EU. That's a big deal, right? America first means America all alone. And you're seeing right here Donald Trump flailing and begging for help. And other countries are saying, no, Donald, we're not helping you. You're not going to rebrand this and trick us.
Let me interrupt for a minute to bring you this important news story. So we're seeing a major warning sign right now across the United States, and it's one that can impact everything from wildfire season to your grocery bill. New data shows that more than 61% of the lower 48 states is now in moderate to exceptional drought, and that includes a staggering 97% of the Southeast and about 2/3 of the West. And here's the key point. This is the worst drought level for this time of year since tracking began in the year 2000. It gets even more alarming. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says that March was one of the driest months ever recorded, ranking behind only the Dust Bowl era of 1934. Out west, record heat and low snowpack mean less stored water heading into summer, fueling wildfire risk and worsening water shortages. Meanwhile, a separate weather pattern tied to the jet stream is keeping storms away from the south, deepening drought conditions from Texas all the way to the East Coast. And the numbers are staggering. Some areas would need over a foot of rain in a single month just to catch up. Eastern Texas, nearly 19 inches. This is what climate instability looks like in real time, and yet we continue to see political leaders, especially Donald Trump and his administration, reject climate science and ignore the consequences that are already here. Thanks for watching. Now we need you to speak out. What are your thoughts on climate issues, on Trump's rejection of climate science, on our climate segments here at MeidasTouch? I want to hear from you. I'll be reading your comments. Okay, Ben, back to you.
And of course, some of the other developments in Canada that we've been talking about here on a daily basis on the MeidasTouch network. Elbows up to all the Maple Meidas out there. We know that NATO not going to be purchasing the successor to the E3 AWACS Sentry, which is the E7. Instead, the Bombardier Saab. Bombardier is made in Canada. Saab is Sweden. This Bombardier Saab version of the AWACS, basically, that's going to be NATO's crown jewel of surveillance planes. That's pretty incredible. We know that Canada is still reviewing whether or not it wants to purchase those 88 F-35s or if it should go to Saab in Sweden. Sweden's offered a great package as well to build new planes in Canada, kind of like this Bombardier Saab relationship with the surveillance plane, bringing these fighter jets. And these fighter jets, for the type of modern warfare that exists, a lot of people are saying better than the F-35s. I hear a lot from Canadians and European Union's folks, Swedes, others saying, Ben, this is actually a better plane. The F-35 is good at some things, but not really adapted to modern warfare. And so while Donald Trump is begging world leaders to join his crew, and they're saying no, and they're joining Carney's crew, I also found this interesting as well. So Trump Washington, D.C. Golf Club posted the following. The excitement, this is what they posted yesterday. The excitement and anticipation are building at Trump Golf DC as the finishing touches are being put in place for the arrival of LIV Golf next week. We look forward to welcoming players, guests, and fans for what promises to be an extraordinary event. The countdown is on. As Jamie Dupree explains, Trump's club in Virginia is touting the LIV Golf tournament next week, as the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Saudi PIF, their private investment fund, is cutting off funding for the alternative golf tour. Yes, Donald, you managed to kill LIV, and now you're bragging that the LIV Golf tournament will be playing at your Virginia club when LIV right now is about to go bankrupt. Breaking via Wall Street Journal, Saudi Arabia is pulling its funding from LIV Golf. LIV plans to tell players and staff by today that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund would end its funding for the upstart league. But the PGA Tour isn't ready to welcome back those who jumped ship and left for LIV. Someone laugh at Phil Mickelson who blocks me. That's what Yashar Ali says. We'll give you a nice laugh. Jake Sherman writes, the clown show has ended. After spending recent weeks on life support, LIV Golf has lost the funding of its Saudi backers. One of the main reasons it did is because Donald Trump's disastrous and catastrophic war in Iran has caused a lot of economic pain in the Middle East. And one of the ways Saudi Arabia is retaliating against the Trump regime, both because it's retaliating, as well as now it's economically struggling, is it is no longer making these massive investments in U.S. things, U.S. tourism, big private equity funds, things like that. Saudi Arabia says, unless it's essential, we're not giving money to, all of these things that were getting Saudi money in the United States, like LIV. And so Trump destroyed that. And to think that back in 2022, when LIV started holding a lot of their golf tournaments at the Trump courses. Do you remember when remember when it started and there was all of these families who lost loved ones in 9/11? They were protesting the fact that LIV, backed by Saudi Arabia, was doing these golf tournaments in the United States because the Saudi government and the Saudi entities were behind some of these hijackers, a lot of the hijackers in 9/11, right? And so Donald Trump was asked in 2022, what do you think about like the protesters, the families who lost loved ones on 9/11? They're upset that the Saudis are playing golf at your courses. And Trump's like, we don't really know what happened on 9/11. No one's really gotten to the bottom of 9/11. Here, play this clip.
You're so closely associated with the city of New York. Yeah. You, of all people, understand the passion surrounding 9/11. What do you say to those family members who protested earlier this week and will be doing so again on Friday?
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have, as to the maniacs that did that horrible thing to our city, to our country, to the world. So nobody's really been there, but I can tell you that there are a lot of really great people that are out here today, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to celebrate, and money's going to charity. A lot of money's going to charity. And you have really the best players in the world, many of the best players in the world, and soon you'll probably have all of them.
I also find it fascinating, too, that Donald Trump has alienated even the far right-wing parties in European countries. I mean, you take a look, for example, at the National Rally, which is the far right-wing party associated with the Le Pen family in France. So the National Rally Party, very far right-wing party in France. They're led by a guy named Jordan Bardella. And they used to be like a natural ally of MAGA, right? Because they're MAGA France, basically. And here's what he said yesterday. Donald Trump's policy is now completely erratic, and no one is able to predict what he wants. By definition, when you change position very regularly, when you are not consistent, you no longer provide certainty, especially as the leader of an allied country. And obviously, this situation harms the reliability and credibility of the United States on the international stage. This is not our war, Bardella says, but we are heavily suffering the consequences. I have always been extremely cautious about this recurring temptation from Trump to want to orchestrate external interventions. He goes on to say, the Americans have probably underestimated their adversary, as they did previously in Afghanistan and in Iraq. We can clearly see that the desire to destabilize a regime cannot be achieved with just a few air operations. Why? Because the Iranian regime appears to be more solid than expected. It is likely more resilient than anticipated. It is now more radicalized than it was just a few weeks ago. And again, that's the far right wing kind of MAGA party there that ain't MAGA anymore, that ain't supporting Donald Trump. You know, I think about this image right here as well, and the reporting from Axios, because Donald Trump leaks all of the stuff to Axios. They're basically Trump's stenographer, that guy Barack Ravid, you know, that writer. And what Axios is reporting is that Trump has said that he speaks with Netanyahu every single day of the week to basically coordinate everything. And it's just odd. I mean, why is why? It's odd. It's dangerous. Like, what are we doing as a country? America first means Netanyahu and Israel first. America first. What are we doing here? Anyway, there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks so much for watching.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.MeidasTouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.